What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Today is Monday, which means Monday Mail Day. I got some questions. I've highlighted the ones I'll be answering. And shout out to Tom Brady, man. Love him or hate him, he's the greatest. Won the Super Bowl. It was a come from behind victory. They were down like 28-3. Crazy if you guys watch football. But let's get into some Monday Mail Day, and I'm going to get into some questions. This is a question from CSM HB J Dog. Wasn't Kell supposed to make a decision by Friday? Now I believe it's going to purse bid next week, so that's the answer to that question. And don't know what he's gonna do, but the time is ticking as of right now, so we should get an answer if he's gonna move up, if he's gonna vacate. Amir Khan said he's not fighting him next, so I don't know what he's gonna do, but the deadline has started already. Next question, the Overman. Why is it every black boxer be held to a different standard or be criticized even after a good performance like Tank Davis? Also, when Crawford beat Hank Lundy and John, many fans, y'all gotta work on the spelling. You're gonna have me reading this all crazy. Many fans said that he got hit too much, but when he outboxed Postal, he was running and it was a boring bout. But when Leo and Mikey both was outboxing their opponent, not one fan criticized their wins. Wow, that's a good question though. And I mean, I don't know, because I'm not one of those fans. I give everyone a fair shake. If you impress me, you impress me. But I know what you're talking about. Like, you look at other fighters who box a bit more, like even like a Lomachenko, right? HBO always act like they wanted to puke when it came to Floyd Mayweather, and what he's doing in there is sweet science, you know what I mean? Especially Money Mayweather, right? And they say, oh, you're boring, but then Lomachenko uses some footwork, or he does this, and they say, oh, it's because he's so much more offensive. But this is the thing, Floyd was offensive too when he was Pretty Boy Floyd, but he moved up 5 divisions. I guarantee you, like, mark my words, and I rate Lomachenko very highly, but let Lomachenko move up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 divisions, and I guarantee you he's going to have to adapt his fight game, or he's going to lose. He already has a loss to Orlando Salido, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles. If you're fighting guys like honestly, can anyone out there picture Lomachenko honestly fighting and beating some of the people that Floyd or Pacquiao have beaten? Little guys moving up. And this is not taking anything. I really want to know. Can you picture Lomachenko beating Maidana? Okay, Maidana doesn't have the same skill level or technique, but I mean, he's a lot of pounds, or even better, a boxer puncher like Canelo, who's going to come in the ring at 165 to like 175, right? Maybe even more than that nowadays. Can you picture Lomachenko beating that, giving him all that height, giving up all that weight? So obviously, guys like Floyd and even Pacquiao, they fight different, but they have to adjust their style a bit when you're fighting naturally the Margaritos of the world and Cottos, guys that are naturally bigger than you, started in higher divisions and stuff like that, period. But I don't know, it's just, that's what I'm here for, new media, you know what I mean? A lot of people, they have certain favorites, which is cool, everyone can have their favorite, but the thing that bothers me is people have favorites to the point where they bash somebody for doing something else. Oh, I just want an action show. And then someone else gives you a not action show and you never criticize them. Like Leo Santa Cruz, he even admitted post-fight, because I was at the fight live covering the fight as media, right? He admitted post-fight that I like to give my fans action fights, but I had to let off the gas a bit because I just had to win. And I had to win any way I could, you know what I mean? But when Floyd does it, or like you're saying, Crawford does it. And I covered the Crawford fight live too, versus Postal. That wasn't boring to me, right? But to some people, I mean, it's boring in the sense of it's one-sided and the other person is not able to find anything, like any openings. But I mean, maybe if Postal put his foot on the gas and really pressed the action, he would have either been knocked out or he would have had success. That's usually how it goes, right? But Crawford clearly had the bull by the horns, and it was up to Postal to make a change. So to answer your question, I can't really answer it because I'm not one of the people that think like that, but I know the type of people you're talking about who have all these clear-cut double standards, and they throw them in your face. Like they said, Tank Davis, shout out to my dude Tank Davis and B More. They say he hasn't fought nobody, right? Then he's willing to fight someone, an IBF champion. He's been screaming for a title shot. He does that, and he looks sensational. And he actually fights like the champion, and the champion is making fucking weird noises. Woo, 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 woo! Like he got the chills or something. And he's making all these noises and getting mopped up. And then he gets stopped for the first time. And then it's still not good enough. They're like, oh, but he can't beat Lomachenko or this and that. And they want to rush him. So, I mean, it's the way the game is. I guess it comes with the territory. And when you have so many black boxers that are dominant, some people don't like to see that. So they're just, you know what I mean? They're going to hate or they're racist or whatever the situation is. And they want to criticize. Like, I don't know. Black people have enough good fighters. You know what I'm saying? Let's talk more about Pacquiao or whoever. But it's just sad. Just call it who it is and how it is, no matter what a person looks like, their skin color, creed, or background or whatever. Next question is W Blake 22. When his contract is up, do you think Canelo will sign with TMT? I'm thinking they will, but I was wrong when I thought they would sign Ortiz when he left Golden Boy. I don't see that. I don't really see him signing to Floyd, because at the end of the day, Floyd, I don't think Canelo, I think he's like a prideful, like loyal person. I don't know him on a personal tip, but that's what I see from him. Because in my opinion, and this is I'm not throwing shade, this is just my opinion. You guys are on Monday Mail Day, Boxingego, this is my shit. This is my opinion. I think Canelo it would behoove him to maybe get a new trainer. You know what I mean? Not the Reynoso brothers. I don't have anything against them, but I think he might be able to learn some different things. Like if Canelo could work on his footwork, right? Like let's say he got with Pedro Diaz or somebody who's trained a lot of skillful like Olympians and Rigondeaux and Cottos and stuff. He's been in there with, I think, the Cuban Olympic team and stuff like that. But let's say he got with the coach like that, like a Pedro Diaz, someone completely like different than his current trainer. He might be able to pick up little things. He's already a hell of a fighter. He's already a good fighter, hand speed. He has ring IQ. He's working on his defense, upper body movement. So that's my opinion. But he's been with the Reynosos. They brought him in the game, and that's where he wants to stay. So that's his decision. He can do what he wants. But I don't really see him signing to Mayweather. Another thing is I don't think I think it's a pride thing. You know what I mean? You have to bring yourself down a notch as a man to actually in turn partner with the person that you had, I'm not gonna say a beef, but that beat you and gave you your first career loss. It's kind of like Nas and Jay-Z, like Ether and Takeover, and they're dissing each other, and then Nas end up signing to Jay-Z later down the line. You know what I'm saying? So it takes a big person to do that, like to put everything in the past and you know what I mean? Even like De La Hoya signing Bernard Hopkins. Bernard Hopkins stopped you. You know what I mean? So you have to be of a certain mindset to get over it, and you know what I mean, and say, hey, I want to be with Mayweather Promotions or whatever. And I don't see Canelo. I think he's just too prideful and he's too loyal, kind of like Pacquiao. Like Pacquiao, I've said this time and time again, at this point he doesn't need Top Rank. It's been this way for a while. He could have left Top Rank and then tried to start his own promotional company, Mayweather Promotions, and did his own thing. And if he wanted, he could have done like COTTO. COTTO Promotions, COTTO has his own promotional company. You guys have to study the business. He has his own imprint, COTTO Promotions, and they were going to put some of their fighters on the Kirkland card that got canceled, obviously. But he was working, like when he fought Delvin Rodriguez, Sergio Martinez, he was working in association with Top Rank, but he wasn't signed to Top Rank. That's why a little bit after the Martinez fight and he became a lineal middleweight champion, it was announced that he was with Rock Nation and got this big ass deal with Rock Nation and a large sum of money to sign with them. And that's why Top Rank was kind of salty, because they had, since he lost to Mayweather and Austin Trout, they were the ones that had been promoting with him for his fights, and they thought it seemed kind of disloyal to Top Rank. Like, damn, you get a title and beat Martinez, and we make good business and make money with each other, and then all of a sudden you just go to another new company for all this money. You know what I'm saying? So that's why you haven't seen to this day COTTO really work with top rank, like fight a top ranked fighter. So that's what it is. I just, to back to your question, I don't see Canelo signing with TMT because, like I said, guys like COTTO were smart enough, but Pacquiao, he could have been started his own promotional company. And guys like Canelo and Pacquiao, maybe they're still learning the business or they don't want the responsibility or whatever, but you could work in association with someone without signing, and they keep signing extensions. So if Canelo wanted to sign with Mayweather or Pacquiao wanted to really fight Mayweather and top rank, I think was a big, Bob Arum was a big roadblock to that fight happening, then he didn't have to sign the extension that he did. You know what I mean? He could have been like, I'm starting my own thing. And if he couldn't get it done with top rank, then he could have handled it, him and his team, his new team or something with Mayweather. But whatever, we already seen the fight. Next question, AJ's. What's up, Eagle? I have a two-part question. It's rumored that JERMALL Charlo's first fight at 160 will be against Hassan Indam. Assuming he gets past him, who would be an appropriate second opponent, considering he's getting acclimated to the division, but the opponent is still good competition? My second, okay. Let me just read the question so I can just answer it. My second question is, why aren't people talking about the importance of lineal champions? Canelo, Fury, Adonis, Rigo, they have the most history behind them, and it's not controlled by a sexy body that could be inconsistent, implementing rules, or motivated by their own agendas. Example, the WBO stripping Andre but ordering Canelo, Liam Smith to fight him after he became the mandatories. I mean, boxing, just the second part of your question, boxing is just in general screwy. It's more so now than ever. I think it's a business. I think the promoters realize it, the fighters realize it, the sanctioning bodies realize it. So certain things get exploited. There's some favoritism, there's exceptions made for certain people. You know what I mean? It's a good look if Canelo's holding your belt, whether he deserves it or not. Just like the UFC, Conor McGregor, there's no reason he should have the featherweight title and never defend it, never rematch Jose Aldo, fight the top guys like Frankie Edgar, or even maybe a Jeremy Stevens, or have any title defenses. He holds on to that, fights Nate Diaz, who at 170 outside of featherweight, and he's holding on to the featherweight strap all this time. And then he finally, after 2 Diaz fights at 170, completely outside of the realm of featherweight, he fights a lightweight in Eddie Alvarez, and then he beats him, looks good in that fight, looks impressive, and they say, oh, Conor McGregor is the first guy in UFC history to hold 2 belts in 2 different weight divisions simultaneously, right? So the thing is, I'm sure there could have been other people who moved up a weight division that had a belt in the previous division, but if you gave them the same exemptions and exceptions that you gave Conor McGregor, then they could have been the first, but they gave it to Conor McGregor, and it is what it is. So there's just a lot of politics when it comes to that. But the first part of your question, CHARLO, if he gets past Hassan Indam, that's a good fight. I would like to see him, anybody at 160 that's just has a name. I think Curtis Stevens versus David Lemieux winner. They both lost to Golovkin, so they pack a punch. But I would say with the frame and who's a better boxer, you have to clearly say CHARLO is slicker and he's the better boxer. So maybe the winner of Stevens versus Lemieux, fight it, put him in with the punchers, see how his boxing ability looks, see how he takes a punch at 160. Any fight like that. Maybe a Billy Joe Saunders, even if Danny Jacobs loses to Golovkin or something, a fight like that would be good. There's a lot of different options for him at 160, and that's kind of sounds like why he's moving up. So really, anybody ranked top 15, get acclimated, fill out the division, get your body ready. Next question, Jamarius Robinson, Ego. I have noticed a growing desire from HBO to pit Terence Crawford against Errol Spence. Why do you think they are doing this, since Spence is PBC and fights on a different network? They have never done this to Triple G or Canelo. Again, this is another question. I don't work for HBO. I don't have like exclusive intel on what goes on in the boardrooms of HBO, right? So I don't know. All I can say from my perspective is that I noticed that HBO in recent years has been gearing their network to Rock'em Sock'em robots, and they seem more concerned with the action fights, and they almost have like an old school business model, thinking that that's all people can respect and appreciate in boxing is the action style. Like Ruslan Provodnikov versus Lucas Matisse, we'll take it. We want that fight. That's a good boxing after. Curtis Stevens, David Lemieux, we want that fight. Triple G versus anyone because he's been knocking out everyone, we want that fight. You know what I mean? Chocolatito versus Cuadras, that's a good fight, we want that. You know what I mean? And it seems like they're just gearing their network for that style of fight. And obviously Errol Spence comes to bring it. Crawford, he's multifaceted, so he can fight different types of ways. So I don't know why they're doing it. But another thing I've noticed too about HBO particularly, when it comes to their black fighters, they almost act like some of their black fighters are expendable. Like it's like you put them in the lion's den with all the top killers, like the Black Murderers Row and tough oppositions, and then if they manage to emerge beyond through all of that, then you'll start promoting them a little bit more. Like, damn, I guess Crawford really is the goods. You know what I'm saying? But some of the other fighters seem to get spoon-fed. This is just what I've seen, and I can give you guys several examples maybe in another video, but it just seems like that's what they're headed towards. I don't really think HBO is in the boxing business like they once were. Like, it's definitely not showing from their programming. Again, you put Takashi Miura versus whoever, Mickey Roman or whatever, and you put a card with Francisco Vargas and Berchelt, which it was an upset. The champion ended up losing his belt, but that's cool. But there's more to boxing than just those fights. And the thing I told you guys, the thing that's bad with it is you don't give these fighters a chance to rest. Like, you know what I mean? Like Francisco Vargas, his shelf life, I'm telling you, is going to be very short if he keeps getting managed like this. And it might even be too late now. They put him in with Takashi Miura, a tough-ass Japanese fighter who nearly stopped him before he turned things around the next round and stopped Takashi Miura. But the guy has power. It was a grueling fight. Very next fight, he fights a veteran with the similar style, non-stop pressure, rugged Orlando Salido. And then he fights this Berchelt dude and gets his body destroyed by Berchelt and loses his belt. He has clear scar tissue. His eyes looks like shit in almost every one of his fights since Takashi Miura, right? But those are the fights that HBO is like okay with. You know what I mean? If the promoter said, hey, what about Francisco Vargas versus, you know what I mean, Joey Two-Tone? He's a boxer. You know what I mean? HBO might be like, no, we don't want that. This Berchelt, we seen some tape of him, put him in there with him. And you do that, now your fighter has like a short ass career. You know what I mean? What did Biggie say? Your reign on top was short as leprechaun as I crushed Soko Willie's thugs and Rapidan. Your reign on top was short as leprechauns. You know what I mean? He was the WBC champion for how long? Maybe 2 defenses or something. And now his eyes keep getting messed up and scar tissue. He nearly got stopped. Grueling fight and then did get stopped. You know what I mean? That's kind of the how can HBO get another Pacquiao like that? You know what I'm saying? Another Mayweather, like somebody who's on top when you put him in like back to back wars like that. You know what I mean? Just rock 'em, sock 'em. I'm telling you. And even if you do, you have to have a high skill set to emerge. Like Mayweather, there's a reason why he's went through his career 19 to 20 years pretty much unscathed without like any big embarrassing like, you know what I mean, looks like his eyes about to fall out or getting knocked down and knocked through the rings and shit. You know what I mean? But not everyone's like that. Mayweather's an anomaly. So I don't know what it is with HBO, but I just noticed their programming seems to be gearing towards that. Like if it's an all-out war, then it is. But see, this is the problem with that. To me, all-out wars are great. I have no problem. I've been at some all-out wars live, and it's a great atmosphere. Crowd goes nuts. But it's like HBO wants to manufacture that, and that's not even how the game works. You know what I'm saying? Because boxing is weird. Some fights that I didn't even expect shit from turn out to be way better. Like, for example, Lucas Matisse versus John Molina. John Molina was moving up to 140. So I was like, man, Matisse is probably going to destroy John Molina, and that's my dude. But it was a competitive fight, and John Molina actually did what Danny Garcia didn't do and knocked him down twice. And then he ended up getting stopped. But then I watched Lucas Matisse versus Ruslan Provodnikov. I was like, no way this goes the distance. And then that fight actually went the distance. You know what I'm saying? And the Molina-Matisse fight was a fight of the year. I don't really think Ruslan versus Matisse was. It was cool, but it wasn't. I thought it was going to be like all out action for 12, and it wasn't. You know what I mean? It had some climactic moments, but that's what it is. So you can't. The HBO is foolish in the sense of thinking that they can. You just put two names in and think you can mastermind and match make it to the point where you're going to manufacture the greatest fights. It doesn't always work like that. Andre Ward versus Kovalev. I watched that live. I covered that fight as media. A lot of people said that was going to be boring. I was not bored at all. Right? I thought that was a fun ass fight despite the controversy. I don't care who you thought won. It was a fun fight. And people said it was going to be a boring clinch fest, and it wasn't. You know what I'm saying? So HBO needs to realize you can't manufacture. Some fights just end up being remarkable, and people didn't even expect it. And sometimes you have fights like even Mayweather-Pacquiao where people maybe expected more than what it delivered. I mean, for me, I got what I wanted from Mayweather-Pacquiao because that's what I thought. I mean, yeah, Floyd could have maybe been more offensive or it could have been knocked down or something, but I mean, it's a high-level chess match. Next question. David Granados. Are you related to Broner's opponent? Broner, Adrian Granados? If the Errol Spence Kell Brook fight happens and Spence wins, do you think people will use Kell's eye injury as an excuse on why he lost and prevent him from getting his props? I mean, some may, but I mean, you can never split the crowd where everyone's going to agree on anything. You know what I mean? Some people say Ward won, some people say Kovalev won. So you're always going to have a mixed bag, if you will. But the real people are going to give him props regardless because, I mean, that's not how it works. So that's like Joe Smith Jr. In my honest opinion, I think the Kovalev beating and long layoff definitely played a part in Bernard Hopkins coming into the Joe Smith Jr. fight. However, I don't take credit away from Joe Smith Jr. and there's nothing in stone tangible that I could say this is exactly why Bernard Hopkins got knocked out of the ring versus Joe Smith Jr. It's just, in my opinion, I think that Kovalev beating in the 12th round and losing the whole fight and then taking a long layoff, I think that didn't do any favors to Bernard Hopkins, my opinion. I think Pacquiao busting Margarito's eye to fucking hell and then Cotto getting him after in the rematch, that worked for Cotto's advantage because he was targeting that eye. But, I mean, at the end of the day, a win's a win. Joe Smith Jr., he might fight Adonis. He moves on to bigger and better things. You look at the Cotto, he avenged his loss. So, I mean, it don't really matter what people say. I mean, Joe Smith Jr. moved on. Miguel Cotto moved on. They won. So, people could try to make excuses on why it happened, but the reality doesn't change that it did happen. So, I mean, I don't really care if Errol Spence, because at the end of the day, people are still saying Kell Brook will knock Errol Spence out. So, I mean, you got to give the man his props because there's still a lot of people picking Kell Brook. So, you can't try to back out the blocks now and be like, if Errol Spence does defeat Kell Brook, oh, it's because of the Golovkin eye. You know, it doesn't work like that. Some people may try to use it, but that's a pansy excuse. He lost. If he lost, then he lost. Next question, 11 million views. Where do you think all this hate from Eubank Jr. comes from, and Triple G hasn't fought any high-level opponents, and he hardly gets any criticism when he is 8 years older? Again, you guys are asking me questions. I don't really have much criticism for Eubank. I mean, I don't really have criticism. I feel I try to give people criticism when it's rightful. I haven't seen anything. Chris Eubank, he stays in shape. He sounds hungry. I just want to see him fight better than Reynald Quinlan. So that's one thing. I think the biggest thing is he has a dad who's a former fighter, legend, and he doesn't necessarily always do his son any favors because he talks and says radical things. My son will knock out this person, Golovkin or Billy Joe, in a rematch, or this and that, and he's going to sell 8 to 11 million views on pay-per-view, and he's the next global star. So sometimes these father-trainer combinations are making it worse for their sons, like Angel Garcia. Most people, when I've literally seen people say, I want Danny Garcia to lose to Keith Thurman or to Zab or to whoever because of his dad, because of Angel Garcia, because they're related, because he's doing the talking on behalf of Team Garcia. So I think it's the same thing with Eubank Jr. You know what I mean? His dad saying all this wild stuff. And I mean, he says some stuff too. He actually speaks probably more than Danny Garcia. And he talks about Billy Joe Saunders, then he fights Reynald Quinlan. He says he wants James DeGale's teeth, and he fights Reynald Quinlan. If you're ready for all that, then why don't you just fight James DeGale, George Groves right away, instead of fighting for an IBO belt against a guy whose claim to fame is Daniel Gill, who moved up. I mean, Gill got stopped by Golovkin at 160, got stopped by Cotto at a drained catch weight of like 157, and had a tough fight with like a Gerald Fletcher. Then he moved up to 68 and gets stopped in I guess an upset. And then, you know what I mean, that's who Eubank fought. So I don't know what it is, but I would say his dad probably plays a part in that, and just the arrogance or the talk. But people want to see you, like, put it this way, name a person that Chris Eubank Jr. has fought as good as Billy Joe Saunders since Billy Joe Saunders. You won't be, you know what I mean? Who? Nick Blackwell? There's not really anybody that he's fought that we would consider at a Billy Joe Saunders level or better. But him and his father are talking the talk. Next question, Michael Perez. What do you think about the Felix Verdejo fight? In my opinion, the opponent was very mediocre, and I want to see more. Yeah, I didn't see the early rounds. I seen the end, the middle to end rounds. He didn't look good. I don't know. I'm not gonna look too far into it because he did get back off of a layoff and a motorcycle injury. So maybe he had some ring rust. Maybe he overtrained. I don't know. But he didn't look great. That's all I do know. And the last 3 rounds, he didn't look spectacular. So I got to reserve judgment till I see him in his next fight. But I do, truthfully, I expected him to be a little bit further along at this point, like challenging for a title. And based on that performance, I don't know that he's ready for a title shot. Next question, Sports Genius. Do you think that Caleb Plant has the personality to be the Caucasian crossover star that caters to that demographic, with possible super fights like Wilder versus AJ, Canelo, Triple G? Do you think that beats out UFC pay-per-views, seeing as McGregor is the only superstar left? Caleb Plant certainly has I think he has the it factor. He has swag, you know what I mean? Pause. Caleb's my dude. Like, I just talked to him in Vegas. Cool cat, clean cut. And he, you know what I'm saying? He has that, like, that southern swag. And I think he has the personality, you know what I mean? Other fighter, he's cool with the other fighters and stuff, and he can fight his ass off. So, yeah, if he has the right marketing, the right vehicle, and they give him the right platforms to showcase so people get to see him, I think he can do it. Because, I mean, people say this a lot, but boxing is a business, you know what I mean? Canelo has fans that don't even really care about boxing like that are females. You know what I mean? Caleb can have stuff like that as well as being a good fighter. You know what I mean? Canelo can scrap. Caleb can scrap. Those guys can scrap. So, yeah, he definitely has the mindset, and he's with the right team in terms of Al Heyman, PBC. So, yeah, he could definitely be one of the best Caucasian crossover stars or whatever you're saying. Fights like Wilder, AJ, Canelo, Triple G, hell yeah, I think they could surpass UFC cards. I mean, just because Canelo, Triple G's been brewing for years, so it's like a baby Mayweather, Pacquiao, and then Wilder, AJ. Wilder has a name in the States. People are knowing who he is. AJ is selling 90,000 at home in UK with Klitschko. So, I mean, for Americans' first chance to see AJ scrap, you know that fight would probably end in a knockout. I think if handled right, those cards, given the right exposure, could definitely outsell UFC pay-per-views, right? But it has to be good competitive. You know what I mean? Cotto, Kirkland, yeah, UFC is going to bury them if they have a stacked UFC 205 card again. You know what I mean? Because people aren't really requesting Cotto, Kirkland. That's just my opinion. Next question, NBT Boxing. What the fuck do you think Kell Brook is going to do being sandwiched between Errol Spence and the Killers at 154? And I'm not going to hint, but his time is running out, so he's gonna have to decide that soon. I told you guys, he's in between a rock and a hard place, because he has a killer named Errol Spence Jr. who looks hungry as fuck, who wants his shot, man down, and he's hashtagging all this stuff. And then there's a lot of quality fighters at 54. So 50, like he said, you gotta do something, baby. You gotta make a decision, gotta do something. Next question, boxing comments. Cotto versus who next? My top picks are Cotto versus Billy Joe Saunders for the middleweight title, or Trout 2, or Juan Manuel Marquez at 154 max. By the way, keep KOing them out, bro. Thank you. I like all those. Trout rematch. Trout needs a big fight. He wants a big fight. I actually thought he didn't. I covered the fight with him and JERMALL Charlo, and honestly, I thought Charlo might even KO Trout, and it was a competitive fight. And then you've seen how good Charlo was when he fought Julian J. Rock Williams, and that's the guy that people didn't think he would KO, and he KO'd him, but he didn't KO Trout. So I think Trout is definitely hungry, and he deserves a COTTO needs to rematch Trout to avenge that. You know what I mean? Because I don't know if Floyd's even fighting anymore, so you can't necessarily rematch that. You and Pacquiao are on the same team, and then Pacquiao will try to fight you at 136 or something. So that's probably out of the question, having the same trainer, and probably weight-wise, they're in different positions right now. So go after the rematch that you can get. You already avenged the Margarito rematch and beat him. So go after, and he's not even really relevant. So I would say go after a Trout. The Marquez fight, that's a good one. Marquez says he wants the fight. Two legends. The other one that you didn't say that I would like would be Erislandy Lara. I think that's a good clash of styles. Or Tim Bradley. If Bradley's always talked about going to 54, maybe a catch weight at 150, 152, like Mayweather, Canelo, something like that. Those are my picks. Next question, Saddam Nasser. Who are you leaning towards, Brook or Spence? Spence, but it's a good fight. It's anybody's fight. That's just who I would lean towards at the moment. And if the fight is made official, which I'm not in the habit of doing double work and doing predictions and breaking down fights and then they never happen. I've learned too much from boxing to let that happen, because it's just a waste of breath and waste of work. You know what I mean? I like to conserve my thoughts and like really put it to paper. But I've seen David Haye and Tyson Fury have press conferences. I've seen Brandon Rios and Yuri Ortiz Gamboa supposed to have press conferences, and then all of a sudden the fights got canceled or fell apart. Devin Alexander, Kell, Brook fell apart 3 times. You know what I'm saying? So I just got to see it before I start dabbling into like the real specifics. But I would lean towards Errol Spence over Kell Brook. Next question, Avery Vice, great channel, Boxing Ego. Who do you think Errol Spence should fight if Kell Brook vacates to seek a fight with Miguel Cotto, which was rumored? I don't think Cotto wants Brook fight, but that's just me. Do you think a good fight for Errol Spence versus Berto, since Berto's ranked 3rd in the IBF under Jeff Horn? Yeah, I mean, actually, with your question, it doesn't really matter who I think, because it's all based on ranking. It would be the next, you would just move down. You'd be like, okay, Konstantin Ponomarev. Okay, he doesn't want to fight, then they go down the list. So I'd have to look at the list, and I just want whoever is ranked behind Errol Spence or the next person in charge that wants the Errol Spence fight to fight it. And then if that person's not available, go down to the next person until you get a winner chicken dinner. So just whoever's ranked with the IBF if Kell Brook vacates. Next question, Kenny Flo. Ego, Robert Easter Jr. wins his upcoming fight. What would you think would be a good matchup? I think Robert versus Mikey Garcia. Also, keep up the good work. 100. Thank you. I agree. That's the main fight I want to see at lightweight. Me. I think Mikey Garcia would probably stop Jorge Linares. Linares and Anthony Corolla. I mean, that's a cool rematch, but I think Mikey Garcia is too strong, too technical for those guys, right? And I know Linares can box, but I don't believe in his chin as much. And sometimes I've seen him in recent fights where he kind of fatigues, and it's bad. It's a bad fatigue. And especially if you're getting hit. Like, Mikey has I was at his last fight, you know what I mean? He has a killer left hook, good body attack. He has, like, traits of the typical, standard, stereotypical Mexican fighter, but he's more technical than what you would expect. Like, he has traits like the good body work or the crazy left hook, like let's say Orlando Salido, but he's not reckless like Orlando Salido, which makes him dangerous because he's smart. So that's what I think. That's the number one fight. Plus, if Mikey did beat Robert Easter, that would usher in the Adrian Broner fight at 140. You know what I'm saying? Lil bro, Robert Easter, let's say he got stopped by Mikey Garcia, hypothetically. Or let's say if he stopped him or lost a decision, then Broner could get the revenge, or get the revenge fight and see if Broner could beat him. About Billions versus Oxnard. You know what I mean? I love that. I think that's a good storyline. That's the number one lightweight fight I want to see. Next question, Francisco Ochoa. Why is Canelo versus Triple G the fight that boxing needs to make, assuming they both get past their next opponents? Because it's all about the dollar bills, y'all. If Golovkin gets past Jacobs, that's the best name on his whole resume. And that's a certified threat. Nobody could take anything away. Canelo, he's going not necessarily into the most meaningful fight of his career, because he's already lost that to Floyd Mayweather. But it's still a big fight. Big for boxing, is big for Mexico's boxing heritage. So if they both win, this will be the best and the biggest that their careers have been in some time. Because their biggest high profile fights, like you're saying, if they did win, then it leads up to Canelo. All roads lead to Canelo Triple G, which people have wanted for years. So why not have that fight? That fight needs to happen, and it makes big. For me, I told you guys, fights like that make all the sense. The WBC or whoever would probably sanction a belt. Golovkin, if he beats Danny Jacobs, he's gonna have all the belts except for Billy Joe Saunders' WBO belt, right? So it's a title fight. They'll probably make a special like WBC Emerald or Bedazzled belt or something for that particular event. It makes financial sense. It'll be a big fight with big live gates, and it's just all around good for boxing. That's why it's the fight that needs to happen. Next question. Keith Mathis, one fresh to death. Ego, my brother from another mother. In a dream match, who do you think would win in a match between Canelo, Sergio Martinez at 154, since we haven't seen Canelo at 160? Very tough fight. I was thinking about this fight, I think on the last Monday Mail Day, because someone asked about, or it was one of the videos I was doing about Chavez and Canelo, because people keep comparing Sergio Martinez's success. I would probably lean towards Sergio, and Sergio is one of my favorites. I love Matavia, and I'm not trying to be biased because I really like Canelo's skill set and his fighting ability, but Sergio has power at 154 too, maybe even more power at 54 than he had at 160, because he wasn't the biggest 160 pounder. And in addition to that, he's slick on his feet, hands down, unorthodox, good ass stamina with power. So Canelo has slow feet. So if he sat and traded with Canelo, then it would clearly favor Canelo. But I mean, you've seen what Matavia did to Chavez, who's big as fuck, for 11 and a half rounds. You know what I mean? He was toying with him. So Canelo having the slower feet, being in there with the guy who's not the biggest middleweight, but good size for 154. Martinez is bigger at 54 than Floyd Mayweather is. You know what I'm saying? So stylistically, I'd have to favor Matavia, just because of his level of slickness. He uses his legs. He's a southpaw, and he could crack. You've seen what he did to Paul Williams. Next question, Jack Walker. Ego, respect, brother. On the good content. In your opinion, how far can Chris Eubank go in his career? I think he can go all the way. Realistically, that's up to him. That's up to him. I think he's a solid fighter. I still got to see him, because the biggest fight of his career he probably lost, and that was the Billy Joe Saunders, the biggest name. So I think I like his determination, his work ethic. He did pull out because he had an injury, but then he went up to 68. So it shows he's willing to challenge himself. It wasn't the biggest and baddest guy at 168, but it's a start. You know what I mean? We still haven't seen Golovkin move up to 68, and there are probably way better opportunities. But I don't know. I like Chris Eubank. I just got to see him step up. And really, I would never put a limit. I mean, I can give you my opinion, but I don't really put limits on people, because in boxing, it's really up to what they decide to do and mentally how they're built. And I don't really know him on a personal level like that. But he has a good team. His dad has a wealth of knowledge. He's in shape. So we'll see. Next question, Jeffrey Samarin. Which division do you think has the highest level of elite opposition? Welterweight. A lot of talented guys at welterweight. I mean, especially if you include Floyd Mayweather, who is retired, but we never know if he'll peek his head back in. Pacquiao, Danny Garcia, Kell Brook, kind of, he might come back. You got Amir Khan, you got Pacquiao, Mayweather, Errol Spence Jr., Sean Porter, Keith Thurman. You know what I mean? It's just a lot of live bodies and a lot of talent. So that's where I'm picking. Lamont Peterson's coming up there. So it's a lot of guys who on any given day, they could probably beat guys. Berto's and You know what I mean? Even Collazo showed that he could still be dangerous. He hurt Thurman worse than anybody. Had him backpedaling and gasping and running around for air. So it's just, there's the most names and the most guys that could potentially, you know what I'm saying? Like Collazo versus Berto. Maybe Collazo could beat Berto officially this time. Maybe Berto is in his zone now. You know what I'm saying? So Sean Porter versus Berto. These are all good fights. You know, there's high level competition. Even if you don't think they're the highest at the division, they're still threats. You know what I mean? Because I mean, even Berto versus Danny Garcia, I think that's a tough fight for Danny Garcia stylistically. Berto's naturally a welterweight. Berto has good ass speed. So I mean, there's a ton of fights. There's a ton of fights. Danny Garcia, Keith Thurman's coming up, but Danny Garcia versus Amir Khan, these are all challenging fights. Next question, Fresh BX. Are you sure you've never been to NY? Yes. I often see you quoting a bunch of New York rappers, never any California rappers. Also, you don't really have the Bay Area accent. Your accent sounds NY-ish to me. Yeah, I mean, that's... my dad was in the military, so I lived in California the longest, so that's what I call home. But I mean, technically, I'm not from California either. You know what I mean? I was born in New Mexico. I lived in England, and then I came to the Bay Area. So, yeah, I wasn't originally from here, so my voice or accent is probably from traveling. You know what I mean? I'm like Tyson Fury. I'm like a gypsy. So you pick up different dialect. You know what I mean? New Mexico, and then people in England, and I don't know, it's just a mix. As far as like, I love music, but I mean, I don't really like a lot of the artists out here. I'm not trying to sound like, you know what I mean, Benedict Arnold, but I like classic Bay Area rappers or classic California rappers like Ice Cube, Snoop, Dre, DOC, Ras Kaz, he's cool. The Game's dope. Kendrick Lamar. But I mean, I grew up on just hip hop and a lot of, you know what I mean, New York, the East Coast is like the Mecca. You know what I mean? There's so many, the Wu-Tang. I used to love, just big on Biggie, Meth, Red. Pac's my favorite of all time, but just there's a lot of flavor and a lot of people that I grew up like on, even the Queen Latifahs and Nas, all these people. So I don't know. I think I'm just like a mixture of everything. Next question, Romello Brown. Hey, Ego, great job on the channel 100. Question, what if Al Heyman give Berto the ultimatum of fighting Sean Porter of Errol Spence soon? Laughing my fucking ass. Would that be feeding him to the wolves? I mean, not really. These guys got to make a paycheck. He has to fight somebody. He hasn't had a fight since, I think, Ortiz, and I covered that fight. So, I mean, like I said, the welterweight's the most popping. It's full of killers, so, I mean, chances are, no matter who he fights, it's going to be a hard fight, unless he just fights like a Josito Lopez rematch or something, someone he's already beat. Next question, Juan Ramirez Jr. When you compare both Danny Garcia's and Keith Thurman's resume, why don't people give Garcia the edge over Thurman? I don't know, but it kind of goes back to the Chris Eubank question I had earlier. A lot of people don't like Danny Garcia for past reasons, or his dad and Angels saying the N-word or this and that, or he fought Rod Salka. So whatever it is about Danny Garcia, people don't like him. And I think they let that influence their prediction. Keith Thurman's a good fighter, hell of a fighter. Danny Garcia's a good fighter too. So I think people always ask me, how do you get your predictions right? Because I can separate my emotions. I don't care. I know some of the guys, I've seen people that I know personally get knocked out and been at the fight live and look them in their eye after they got knocked out. You know what I'm saying? And you don't know what to say, and it's just awkward, because if you win the fight, everyone's going to the after party or celebrates and shit, and they're all smiles, but then after, you don't really know what to say, because you're like, damn, you just got knocked out. So, you know what I mean? You got to be able to separate. This is a brutal sport. You got to be able to separate that. You know what I mean? You're not going to, unless you're Mayweather, you're not going to win every fight. So I think that's what it comes down to for Garcia. People hate him for perceived cherry picking and Rod Salka and why'd he fight Paulie, and hate him for his dad and stuff like that. So they're not really they're just looking off who they want to win the fight. They're not necessarily looking at the actual facts and saying, hey, they both have a chance. Next question, Elvis Diaz, Senor Ego. Why does the cruiserweight division gets no love? Is it the promoters, the fighters, or the fans, or just not buying into it? Break it down, E-Money. Cruiserweight to me is a forgotten division, mostly because they don't have any stars. There hasn't been any guy. Trust me, there's good fighters, but who is it? You know what I mean? Roy Jones, he fought there and got knocked out, and he looks, you know what I mean, like a shell of his former self. Enzo Macarena or Macarelli or whatever, Machiavelli, whatever his name is, he beat Roy Jones, and then he ended up getting stopped. You look at Marco Huck, he was undefeated for a while, but not a big name. Then he loses to Glowowski, and then Glowowski beats Steve Cunningham, who moved up to heavyweight, came back down, and then he loses to Usyk. So there's really not anyone that's had any kind of revered reign down there in quite some time. So it's kind of a forgotten division, because you look at light heavyweight starting to crack. You got Andre Ward, Artur Beterbiev, Sergey Kovalev, Jean Pascal, Sullivan Barrera, Shabransky. You have Joe Smith Jr., right? Andres Fanfare. You got a lot of people with headlining names and good names in the sport, good power, good boxing. And then you look at heavyweight, cracking. You got Let's Go Champ. Yeah, I said yeah. Cannon Briggs, Deontay Wilder, Luis King Kong Ortiz, Anthony Joshua, Vladimir Klitschko, Tyson Fury, right? And the list goes on and on. There's a lot of talented Joseph Parker, a lot of talent at heavyweight. So you look at light heavyweight and then you look at heavyweight, and you look in between that, cruiserweight, name the big stars like the Kovalevs and Wards at cruiserweight. People don't really know. You know what I mean? Glowowski, like Usyk, he has the opportunity. He should try to learn English pronto. I don't know if he speaks any English, but I don't think he speaks it fluently. But he could be a star based on his style, and I think he'll get promoted. He's a good fighter. But other than that, you don't have anybody like Evander Holyfield, who's just like, this dude's exciting to watch. He has the amateur background. I think Holyfield was like a silver medalist or Olympian, whatever. So, you know what I mean? You don't really have anybody that I could think of at cruiserweight that's just outspoken like a Broner or making noise for himself. You know what I mean? They're just like Marco Huck. So you don't really hear about him. You don't really hear, the names ain't ringing bells. And then fight-wise, there's good fighters, but I can't think of anyone other than Usyk who's just really standing out fight style that people would be like, oh, wow. You know what I'm saying? I can't wait for their next fight. So that's my opinion. Next question, Blue Chip. Yo, Ego, what happened to the Brandon Rios Victor Ortiz fight? I have no idea. I haven't seen any coverage on it or promotions on it. I read last week that they didn't have a venue pick. What's up with that? I don't know. I think the fighters maybe and the trainers might have went to the media before it was all like written in stone, and they released the date and said, oh, it was going to happen here at the Staples Center and stuff. But I don't think the business had been resolved, because I think there's contracts that aren't signed and stuff like that, which is why we haven't heard anything about this particular fight. So I haven't heard any updates. I don't know if it's still going on. I don't know if fighter doesn't want the fight now. I don't know. So it's just kind of like in limbo. I will update you guys if I hear anything. Next question, Paulie G17. What up, Ego? Great work. Love the channel. Keep grinding. Here's my question. After watching a replay of Chris Eubank's junior stoppage win over Quinlan, I have to say I wasn't overly impressed. Who do you want to see him fight next? Thanks, man. Shout out to Troy King and the Garlic Butter Gang from the UK. Shout out to the whole UK. Eubank Jr., like I said earlier in this video, it was a good win for him. First fight in the new division. But it was Reynald Quinlan, who really didn't have any world beater names on his resume. He beat Daniel Gill, who, in my opinion, he's lost. Well, it's not my opinion, it's a fact. But in my opinion, he's not really that dude. He lost to Darren Barker. Triple G stopped him at 60. COTTO stopped him at 57. So, I mean, the fact that he got stopped at a higher weight, moved up to 168, even though he had the frame to do it, it doesn't matter, because he took a beating by Golovkin and he took a beating to COTTO. So, you know what I mean? He was kind of like shop worn. So, I mean, it was what it was. He stopped him. Quinlan, he disputes the stoppage and said he wasn't really hurt or whatever. He landed some good shots. So, we got to see more. And that's it. Just for the amount of talking the Eubank family is doing, I just got to see him in there with somebody real, like a Billy Joe Saunders rematch. I don't care who doesn't want it or whatever. Like they're saying, oh, he wants this. Find the middle ground, make the fight. But it has to be something like that. Stevens winner. I don't even know what weight he's gonna fight at because they're making it sound like they'll go to 160, 168. I just want to see him in there with the premier name, George Groves, James DeGale. You know what I mean? Fight somebody. You can't just be saying, oh, my son will wreck Andre Ward and stuff, but you're fighting Quinlan. Next question, Calvin Phelps. Ego, do you think Adrian Broner still has time to turn his career around? Yeah, I think a lot of people exaggerate when it comes to Broner. Like, I don't think his career is in shambles. I think he bit off more than he could chew, jumped up too fast, too quick, and he paid for it. Maidana made him pay for it. Hell of a performance by Chino, one of my favorites, but that's what happens. If more people jumped up from 35 to 47, I'm pretty sure they would take L's too if they face Chino, Maidana level opposition or Sean Porter. You know what I mean? If Kovalev, great fighter, if Kovalev jumped up to heavyweight, what do you think is going to happen? You know what I mean? If Kovalev moved up to heavyweight, fought Charles Martin and beat him somehow, and then his next fight he fought Maidana level heavyweight or Sean Porter level heavyweight, I mean, he would probably lose too. So I don't think Broner's career is, like I said, in shambles. I don't think he has anything to turn around. Obviously, 2 losses. You don't want to have losses, but I mean, he lost. It's not, people overstate it because they don't. It's like they don't like Broner, so they overstate it. He lost to good fighters. I never seen Broner lose. Even if you thought he lost to Daniel Ponce de Leon, at that time, de Leon was a beast, right? He was actually favored, I think, to beat Abner Mares, even though Mares went up and stopped him. So, you know what I'm saying? I don't think Broner's career needs to be turned around. Now, if he loses to Granados, that wouldn't be a good look. That's a major setback because you keep losing to this same style. So, it is what it is. Next question, Jorge Avila. Yo, Ego, what do you think about Eubank at 168? Like I said, I want to see him fight a name, like somebody with a good ranking. George Groves is not even the highest ranked person in the division, but I'm okay with that fight. It's a good domestic fight. Groves is no pushover, and I want to see those types of fights. James DeGale, anything like that. Even like a Porky Medina, just somebody that's ranked pretty high. I don't know off the top of my head. Gilberto Ramirez is a champion. Those are all good fights to me. Next question, Big C. What's good, Ego? What up? Do you think Wilder's going to have a problem with his opponent's heights similarities? It's possible. Jared Washington is big. He's 6'6", pause. And he's a big dude. And usually for heavyweights, if you're used to nobody matching or even rivaling your height at all, then it's going to be it could be different in the fight because you're used to punching lower because your opponents are Archer Spilka height or whoever. So if you have somebody who's good and a good boxer, undefeated, you could definitely experience problems because I think that's what was the biggest problem for Klitschko. Klitschko was beating Pulevs and Alexander Povetkin, and he was doing it his way. But when he fought a guy who was taller than him or can match his reach and height, he couldn't do some of the same things. And I'm not saying Wilder fights like Klitschko, but it's just a fact when you fight people your own size and they can match. Like Floyd fought when anyone can match anything that you do, it could be a problem. Floyd fought Zab Judah. Floyd is one of the fastest, especially at that weight, one of the fastest people. So he was in there with someone who was equally fast, if not faster. Maybe Zab Judah had a split second faster reaction time, and that gave Floyd problems early. Floyd had to dig in the crate of tricks and slow that shit down with the body work that he did on Zab Judah. So yeah, whether it's height, speed, power, if somebody could match you, then it could be a tougher fight. That's why I want to see Golovkin versus Danny Jacobs, because if anyone in the division has power to rival his and the frame to get it off, it would have to be Danny Jacobs. Curtis Stevens has power, Lemieux has power, but they're shorter than Golovkin. So yeah, no matter if it's height, speed, power, if someone can match you or surpass you with a given trait, then you could definitely have problems. Next question, Mike Gross. Yo, Ego, what up, homie? What up? What do you think about the ITV pay-per-view? To be honest, $12.95 for that was good for the price. Do you think boxing in America can lower the price similar to ITV and Sky? $60 for COTTO versus Kirkland or Pac versus Jeff Horn is laughable. Do you agree? Yes. Last question. Where's the garlic butter? Godfather, ain't heard from TK in a while. Y'all need some merch with that slogan. Keep up the great work. Ego, thank you. Appreciate that. I don't know the logistics, because one thing I do know from living in the UK and just seeing the UK recent emergence in boxing, where they have the most British like champions that they've had in years, decades, is the fans are loyal. So I don't know. Americans are assholes, a lot of us. So I don't know. Even if obviously if the cheaper it is, the more affordable it becomes. So I'm sure that would help. But I don't know. American promoters and stuff seem to be pretty greedy, and the fans, I wouldn't say, are as loyal. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I don't know if the promoters will feel that's worth their money. So I think the logistics might be different. ITV, I'm up for it if it's affordable and people are like it. I don't really get it because I'm in the States, so we don't have the option of it. So I don't really have any kind of commentary on the network as a whole, because I don't get it. I haven't really seen it. But I mean, if it's good for boxing and it's good for you guys over in the UK, then let's make it happen. Hopefully the US can adapt some things, because with streaming and mismatches and fights that people don't want to see on pay-per-view, Canelo, Liam Smith, Jeff Horn, Pacquiao, it's not going to make sense, and it's kind of killing the pay-per-view market. And the final question, Ali Diego 619, Boxing Ego, do you think there's any fighters today that could do 1.5 million pay-per-view buys or more, or are those days over? Yeah, I think 1.2 or 1.5 is realistic, because you have to keep in mind Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao just broke all records. Obviously, that's going to be very hard to beat, but that was only in 2015, so it wasn't that far ago. I don't think streaming was still around, because I remember I streamed some fights that particular year, so it's not like streaming wasn't available or it's so much more readily available. But obviously with streaming, it becomes harder to do some of the numbers. But yeah, you look at UFC. If UFC is getting 1.5, 1.4s, 1.6 for some of their bigger cards, then it's definitely doable in boxing. The bottom line, it has to be the right fight. If it's COTTO Kirkland and people aren't even really thrilled about it, plus the undercard's not sensational, then it's probably not going to do that. But 1.5 is definitely reasonable. I think Canelo versus Triple G, if marketed right and they put the right fights on the undercard and it happens when it should happen, fights like that are meaningful, especially if they both beat their next opponents, Danny Jacobs, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., it could definitely, I think, easily do over 1.5. Canelo versus COTTO did 900K, and I think people at this point probably would rather see the Golovkin fight, because there's been more talk about that fight, right? It's been a good build-up, and people don't know who would win. Some people are saying Triple G is going to stop Canelo. We've never seen Canelo stop, so for that reason, we would pay for it. Some people think Triple G ain't fought nobody, and Canelo is way more skilled and stronger and can compete with him. So for those reasons, people would tune into those fights. Has to be the right fight, though. You know what I mean? If Danny Garcia versus Keith Thurman have a great emphatic win and Floyd comes out of retirement, easily does 1.5, 1.4 million. But it has to be those types of fights. You know what I mean? Or Floyd fought Conor McGregor. Like it or not, it's a crossover fight, 2 different disciplines, 2 different organizations working together. That would do crazy numbers. That might even get close or beat Pacquiao fight, just because of the weirdness of the fight. That's my opinion. Let me know how you guys think I did this week. I tried to get to a lot of questions. Monday mail day. If I didn't get to you this week, maybe ask a question next week. And 2017, we're working a lot of good stuff in boxing. I got some announcements coming soon. Make sure you guys like the video. As always, hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video is Ego signing off.